Hello and welcome to the channel. So we've got a Fender Blues Deluxe Reissue, and this is the customer's brought 2 amps in. This one I recommended it come in for a voltage change, but the other one's got a fault on it. But I thought we'd have a look at this while we got it in. So yeah, nice tweed covering on this one, and if we lift it up, you can see we've got presence, reverb, master, got channel select, middle, bass, treble, drive and volume there. Usual deal. Most of us have seen these before. So you can see I've got the back off now, and we can just go in a bit more with the camera. So there you go, you can see inside, and this is a relatively new amplifier. Power cable's a little short. The cable went intermittent, so obviously something had been dropped on it, so the guy shortened it. And yeah, so there's not really a lot wants doing to this. Maybe just knock the bias back up slightly to where it was left off. So we've only got to change one wire over on this, and it's not a difficult job to do, but I thought we'd just run this up anyway and do a few readings. Now I've taken the transformer winding readings, the resistance, and one side is 78.7, but the other side is 102 ohms, so that's a little bit out. Right, I've just taken the readings while it's on the 230 volt setting, because I have checked this is wired for 230 volts. So just going to check the bias and just see what it is. So, well, maximum plate volts of 437 there. And what they'll do then is I'll show you how to do the bias on these. So let's start with Brune. So we have 2.47 volts as our volts drop. That's across one side of the transformer, which will be Brune, yes. And we divide that by 78.7 ohms, which was measured across Brown when the amp was turned off to get the resistance. So that's divided by 78.7. That gives us 31 milliamps, and if we times that by the 437, we get 13.7 watts. That's quite low. Those are those 6V6 6L6 GCs. This will take 6L6 GCs 5881. Well, there's a bit of a difference between those two. GT 6L6R. Right, so these tubes are a Russian 6L6, and I'm guessing that they are the Russian 6L6s that are, they've just rebadged them 6P 1PS or something. I can't remember now the Russian number, but basically they're like a 5881 almost, but they only have a dissipation of 23 watts, which would make sense. While that should be 16 watts, mind you. Now there's a bit of a discrepancy between those tubes, and that's no surprise given there's a discrepancy between the transformer and each side of the transformer. There's a discrepancy of 24 ohms, but we've got 13.7 on Brune, which is this one, and we've got 14.8 on Blue, which is that one. So there's a watt out. It's not excessive. I mean, it's okay, that is. Of course, when we alter the voltage on this, then the bias is going to drop. So it's already low, so we need to return it back to where it was. That's the only thing there that's going on. So how do we go about changing this voltage over then? Well, in actual fact, it's not that difficult on this amp at all. But we need to pull the plug out before we do anything else. That's the first thing. So looking in here then, So we've got white black here, and we need to change that from black, which is on P10, which is no connection P10, and then we need to put white black back onto the no connection. So that's how we are going to do that. We've got a couple of black wires, so we need to find, in fact we've got three, no we've got three I think, so we need to find P10 before we do anything else. And that's P8. Very difficult to see what's what in here. P10, got him, is here, I think. Is that, no, that's P10. The P10. Yes, we need to snip these tie wraps off as well, so we can get to the wires. So we'll snip those off. Of course, this only applies in the UK. If you're in the States, then this doesn't apply to you at all, because obviously you've got a totally different voltage on the mains. You've got 120, is it 110, 120? So 120 volts, but we've got 240 here. But the EU regulations state that these amps have to be set at 230 volts. But of course, what happens then when they come into the country, as you all know, the filaments are overvolted. There's no chance with this amp being overbiased, because it's underbiased anyway. But of course, the Blues Juniors, it fries the tubes because they're already overbiased before you even start. So it's just the filaments really. It just runs them up to nearly 7 volts, and it shortens the life of the tubes, which is why we need to do this. So there we go. There I've got, that's P4, and we've got the wire off here, the white black. If we'll just thread that through here, because it's got to go down here. So I've got the camera in front of me, so kind of struggling a little. And P10 is here, which is this one. And these can be a swine to get off sometimes, and you have to be careful as well. There we go. So that's been removed from P10, which is no connection. And if you look on the schematic, if you download the Fender Blues Junior Reissue schematic, you can, I've found it on EL34 World. There's a layout of each voltage selection on the imports, they call it. So now we want to put white black onto P10, and that is there. Like so, and then we just bring this up. I think we might need to trim that's just wax on there, so we just need to trim off this here, so we can get a little bit more lead length on there. There we go. And then he simply goes on P4. So we've just swapped P10 and P4. Now if you open yours up and you've obviously got a black on P4 and you live in the UK, then it's already been changed over. Just put manual focus on. So that's all you do to change it from 230 volts to 240 volts. You take white black off P4, you take black off P10, and you just swap them over, and and you're away with that. So now we've done that, what we'll do now is we'll back out a bit, and now we'll check the what the plate volts is again. Now it was 437 before. Now, as I said before, I'd checked the resistance across each side of the output transformer, And to do that, I might struggle to get this in shot, but to do that, you can just about see it down in the corner there. And if I put the light on, let's just make it out. Now, so what we do is we need to find centre tap, and centre tap is here. The red wire is centre tap, and that's connected to that capacitor there. And then obviously a meter needs to be on impedance, of course. And then if we look at the brown wire, you can, if you look underneath, you can see it's connected here. So if we put the meter there, and you can see, can you see that actually the light's gone out and it never stays on long, but you can see that's coming down to more or less 78.7, and it will. You might just have to leave the probes on for a few minutes and let that drop. Make sure the plug's out when you're doing this, by the way. So now you need to measure the blue side, and if we look underneath this board, you can see where the blue spade connector is soldered into the board here. So on that point there, and if we look, if I get my mitts out of the way, we look there, you can see that we've got 102, and that will again will just drop, and you see it beginning to drop now. There we go. And you just need to let them settle a bit. It's 102.2, but we'll call it 102. So that's how you do that. And then when you switch the amp on, you need to check the voltage drop across each side of the transformer, which you need to be much more careful when you're doing. So I'm going to use the current limiter while I fire this amp up. Even it's just something I do, even though I know I've got the wires on right. It's just something I do. If you haven't got a current limiter, then it's fine, but it's just something I do. So we just need to put the plug in there. Let me just, let's see where we're at now. 239 volts we're at, and almost 240, and we're it'll go higher than that in the evenings, 242 plus. So now that's just the camera doing that. So let's check the plate volts again. So to do that, where the brown wires connect, either the brown or blue, but the brown's more convenient. So if you go on the 424 we've got, let's just turn the reverb down as well. 424. So the voltage has come down from 424, from 437 to 424. So we know what the readings are for the transformer, for the impedance. So we just need now, just writing these down so I know where I am. So now all we need to do is get the voltage drop across each side of the amp. Oh, that's suddenly. How weird. Do you know, I thought there was something funny when I switched this amp on, when it first switched on, and it was like a frying. And then just a bit of an increased buzz there, and that's just gone away again. Ah, one of these tubes is microphonic. Not sure which one. Yes. Let's just turn the volume up a bit. Yeah. That clicking is just the camera. Yeah, that tube. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit, it's microphonic, that tube. That's what, thought there was something not quite right. But these amps are gigged a lot, and that does happen from time to time. it's just one of those things, I'm afraid, when they're being carried around a lot. So we've got 2.4 on there still. So let's just see what's on blue. And again, I'm doing the same thing to get these readings as I did to get the impedance set. Obviously now we've got the amp switched on. .19 on there. And we already know what the plate volts is. So let's just check the bias now. So we'll start with brown, and that's 2.4 again. Divide by 78.7. It's now 30 milliamps, but now times. So now it's only 12.9, and before it was 13.7. That's not dropped a massive amount actually, but enough, more than a watt. So it has dropped cooler, which we knew it would, obviously. So let's look at the other side. So blue, we've got 3.19, and we divide that by 102. That gives us 31 milliamps this time on that side. 31.2 milliamps. And before that, we had, on that side, we had 34 milliamps. So if we times that by 424, we've got 13.2. 13.2 watts we've got. So it's just the camera doing that. So we just need to nip the bias up a little bit now, just to get these tubes a bit hotter. That's all, and put them back to where they were before. So we've got the bias preset here. There we go. That's up to 3 now, 3 volts. 3 volts on brown. 3 divided by 78.7. Oh, that's got up quite a bit actually. That's surprising, we didn't turn that very much at all. My word, that has gone up. That's 38 milliamps we've got on there. Let's time, now we need the plate volts, don't we? That has gone up considerably. That's going to be a little, well, it's not actually, it's not too much, because these tubes, they're well within a window, so it actually won't be too much. 420 volts. 16 watts, that's acceptable, because that's 70%, because I put these at 23 watts. It says, I actually looked these up online, it says the Russian 6L6s, and they are rated between 20 and 25 watts, 30 watts peak. But I know from the Russian tube data on these tubes that 23 watts and 16 watts is 70% of that. So yeah, so 70% obviously is absolutely fine, but I think we may be a bit over on the other side, because we got a bit more current on there, so we might have to drop it. .98 on there, so I think we're going to be a bit over, in which case we shall just reduce it, because remember the tubes are a watt out. Well, that says 38 milliamps, so they might have leveled up a little bit. Actually 38.7 milliamps. Sometimes they do when they're biased a little hotter, not always, but, and we've got about 421, haven't we? 16.3, and there they have, you see. That does happen sometimes when you actually bias the tubes a shade hotter. They're a perfect match. That's excellent. So 0.3 of a watt is nothing. So that has actually worked out perfect. They're now set at 70%, which I think is absolutely spot on for these tubes. But I wouldn't set them at 21.5 because they're not GCs. And it says this amp either takes 6L6 GCs or 5881s. They are equivalent to a 5881, but the Russian one is 23, I think it's 23.5 watts, but I know it's 23 at least. So that's perfect for what we've got here. Don't need to go any more. So that's biased at 70%. The only problem, of course, is this tube is poorly. He said that. I don't know. I don't know what was causing. See, that's really strange. Well, we biased the tubes a little hotter and everything's just. That was. I don't know. Did seem microphonic, didn't it? But they don't now. Maybe now it's maybe because now they've got hotter and they've warmed up. The everything's expanded in the tube, so they're absolutely fine now. And that's it, really. That's done, and that's an example on how to set the bias on a Fender Blues Deluxe. Right, got this Fender Blues Deluxe Reissue. We've got it up on the, it's not through the 4x12, it's just on it, and we'll give it a bit of a play. Prepare for some rusty guitar playing. That sounds really nice. Yeah, that's quite tasty. Very nice warm tone. Let's go for the channel select. drive there. Put some of the drive in. Wow. Now Fender amps never sound great with, well, a lot of these classic Fender amps don't sound great with the overdrive. Some of the presence. This thing is loud. There we go, just a quick demo on that there. That's sounding pretty nice. The overdrive obviously is not fantastic, but the clean sound on this is just phenomenal. It's beautiful sounding amps. So there we go, just a quick voltage change there, and the bias sorted out, and that's running most delightful. So that'll do it for this one. So thanks for watching. You all take care. See you in the next one. Bye for now.